Folks on Reddit are calling me out saying I don't understand retaliation. The truth is I may not. So I brought in attorney Ron Zambrano to help me understand it better. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore. Such a pleasure to have you back. Welcome, Ron Zambrano. How you doing, sir?
I'm great, Andy. Always happy to be here.
Now, I haven't shown you this thread yet. I'm going to read it so everyone's sort of on the same page. Because again, I don't think they were calling me out in a mean way. I think they were trying to help ensure that I'm on, reporting correctly. I'm not a lawyer. I never claimed to be. Don't take legal advice from me ever. A lot of this show is opinion based. You should all know that by now. Here's what they quoted me as saying. Look, here's my thing. I really don't believe all that. I'll be honest. I don't, this idea that Jed wasn't out there creating ghost accounts to sort of try to amplify other organic real posts seems silly to me. I understand why they're trying to sort of avoid admitting that because that's where this whole thing comes from. But for me personally, the definition of retaliation and smear would be putting stuff out that's not true. I would also add, I was saying in a win, but being paid to do it or, certain nefarious reasons is what I'm trying to imply there. Create negative narratives that aren't realistic. And I didn't see any of that. I didn't see any of that when I was reporting. So it's hard for me to believe he did nothing. You can pause and read the rest. Andy's wrong. Retaliation claim does not require a false statement or even proof of harassment. And we have to understand this concept. You are a boss. Employee reports you for SH, protected action. However, it's 100% false. You catch employee stealing from the company. For this reason, you fire employee, not adverse action. You tell others that employee stole from the company, so you fired him, her. As a result, employee suffers damage to his reputation. This can be adverse effects, give rise to claim of retaliation. It doesn't matter if the employee can't prove SH. It also doesn't matter what you said about employee is 100% true. So they go on, and you guys can read it's long, but I guess I wanted to have that as a springboard of, are they correct? Was I incorrect? Is it more messy? What is the proper definition of retaliation here? What is Blake looking for? And if Jed Wallace or anybody on that side was out there liking stuff or even putting small things out that were true, how could that become a retaliation campaign? I think it is important that we all understand that. So who's correct?
Right. So I think you're both correct in different contexts. Let's first, I'm going to be as quickly as possible. This is my stuff. I could spend hours talking about this, but okay. So let's talk about defamation, which is kind of what the Jed stuff's about, right? The defamation, the smear campaign, all that stuff. So a defamation is, has a bunch of elements, but it's basically someone said something to a third party that is not true, that causes harm to the subject of what that thing is, right? So that's defamation. It has nothing to do with employment. It has nothing to do with people in positions of power. It's just one person blabbing stuff that isn't true that harms someone else, okay? That's defamation. Retaliation, from a technical legal standpoint, requires an employment relationship between the parties, right? So now, from just a layperson standpoint, you can do an act of defamation because you're pissed at the person you're talking about, right? Andy, you say something about me and I'm like, I hate Andy. And then I tell, I go on my social media platforms like, Andy, Andy still watches cartoons. I don't know, something to embarrass you, right? So my motivation is retaliatory, sure. And I'm engaging in defamation, but that is not a cause of action of retaliation because you and I don't have an employment relationship. You see what I'm saying?
Which Blake and Justin do have because Blake was working for Justin.
Exactly. And then there's no relation between Jed and Blake or Jed and Wayfair. Jed's just Jed, right? So that's
right. Sorry, just to clear, not to interrupt, but yeah, because Blake didn't hire Jed. Blake is not an employee of Jed. It's a separate thing there. Where is that retaliation?
So which thing?
Jed. I guess Jed works for then Justin in that case, or the tag PR, etc. So does that, what are the lines? I guess define them for me.
It can't be more from a technical legal standpoint. It cannot be more than defamation. That Jed did something, said something to a third party or published something to people that Lively is saying caused her harm. That publication to third people caused her harm. That is it. His motivation might be described as retaliatory. What he's doing can be a form of can be described as harassment, but it's not legal harassment. It's not legal retaliation. So that's the problem. So that's why I said who's right, who's wrong. I think what you're describing is right, like the way you describe it. But from a technical legal standpoint, they're very separate.
So that's amazing. This is so helpful. I think we all needed to hear this lesson. I'm so glad you're here because this is your expertise. So Jed specifically, no, you're saying there isn't any retaliation because there's no working relationship between Jed and Blake. Even so, that's what you said, right? That would be a defamation cause. Totally get all that. Now, because Jed technically works for Tag PR, I guess, and then Tag PR is working for Justin. Can that fall in line to any sort of version where Blake's then, I guess, still, Blake's not employed to that, so it doesn't matter. Right. There's no situation where Jed is. Could you then argue that then Tag PR also not retaliating if they aren't actually working with Blake specifically?
Sure. There's no, from a technical legal standpoint, there cannot be a retaliation claim against Tag PR because there's no employment relationship between Tag PR and the aggrieved party who would be Lively. There's no retaliation. Now, Tag PR can be jointly liable with Jed for the defamation act, right? Assuming that's proven. But there's no retaliation that Lively can claim because there's no employment relationship.
I mean, that kind of throws the whole thing away, like now that you say it like that, because realistically, yeah, that's what it's all about is that we can bury you and all these, campaigns that are untraceable, that they're all sort of out there. You're saying really none of that matters because of the working relationship, technically legal definition wise, the retaliation is really about Justin and Blake. Now, if Justin hires this campaign, does that now put it on the hook of Justin is retaliating because of the actions of his employees?
No, because again, only if, no, because again, Baldoni doesn't have power over Blake, right? It has to be power over Blake. So you can argue that Baldoni has an employment relationship with Blake. You can argue that. And you can argue, but it's harder to say that Baldoni was in a position of power over Blake. So retaliation, it really, from a legal standpoint, can only happen if I complain to my boss about, someone selling drugs from our parking lot, and my boss goes, "You're fired," right? Because he has power to do that. Now, now I'll tell you what people get confused. In the defamation part of this, you have to. Part of the thing is you have to prove an element of motive, right? Not motive, but it's really intent. Motive is more of a criminal thing. Intent. So you could say in the defamation claim for the element of intent, that the intent was to retaliate for something Lively did or said. That's possible, but that is only an element. It is not the claim itself for defamation. So from my perspective, anything that Jed did or Tag PR did can only fit in the claim of defamation for purposes of Lively having just being able to check off the boxes, right? Because there's no employment relationship with Tag PR. There's no employment relationship with Jed. And even if you could tie a thing to Justin doesn't have power over her. Really? I mean, that's the whole narrative, right?
Right.
She doesn't have
You
power
could argue
over
Blake had the power, yeah.
Right, yes. So, if she were to come to my office, I want to sue him for retaliation, you can't do it. You can do defamation, and good luck with that. But
so because I thought you said, because the SH I thought was the other key point of this, of which again that falls apart too if the retaliation isn't proven, correct? And I remember you always said, look, the SH complaints, one of those by themselves would have never hung up in court. The all of them together is sort of what's holding that case up, if anything. And then because there's an SH allegation, the retaliation then comes into play just because Justin's fighting back because of the SH allegation. That is still where we stand, and that's ultimately what's, I guess, kept us all afloat.
Yes, exactly. And that is limited and hooked solely on Justin, right? She's accused, Justin and Wayfair. So she's accused Justin of SH, and then she's accusing that she was retaliated for reporting to Justin's SH by Wayfair. So, excuse me. Yes. Is that right? I'm confused you folks. But yeah, so from an employment context, right? Because now Wayfair is his company, and she's just an actress, so employed by the company. So you're absolutely right. Whether it happened or not, it really is not as matters as much as whether the motivation for what Wayfair did to Lively is because they're upset that she even made the complaint. That's the key, right? We did what we did, but our motivation had nothing to do with an SH complaint. And she's like, no, it did have to do with an SH complaint. And that's what a jury's going to have to decide. Was the motive for what Wayfair decided that affected Blvd, was that motivated because Wayfair was upset about the SH complaint? There's no like second trial, like did the SH happen? There's no second trial for them. It's just like SH complaint, yes, check. Now, did the SH complaint have anything to do with the decision? That's another element. And that's the hard part, really. It's really the hard part. That's the lawyering that Blvd's attorneys will have to do if they even get that.
Was this alleged retaliation that we're still defining, was it done because of the SH claim is what we're going to say, but it seems pretty clear all the retaliation, if they want to call it that, was to defend himself and in the PR, which was clearly happening. No?
Yes. So,
will that hold up?
I believe so. So the terms we use in court will be, there was a non-retaliatory reason, right? Blvd is like, it was a retaliatory reason. And the Wayfair is going to be like, no, it was a non-retaliatory reason. It didn't have to do anything with your complaint. We were just defending him from all the stuff that was happening to him. And it may have affected you, and you may be suffering, but your suffering is not connected to your SH complaint. It's connected to our decision that has nothing to do with your SH complaint. That is going to be the evidence in trial, right? There's going to be two ships passing in the night, and it just depends who the jury is going to listen to. And that is the presentation of evidence part of the trial, the whole thing. But that is the distinction, right? That is absolutely the distinction.
So to go back around to where I was at, so this isn't technically retaliation. And I guess, were they allowed to go out, like I'm saying, and go like certain posts or amplify something else if it's true? Would that fall under a retaliation campaign in your purview?
For purposes of, if they can prove that Wayfair sanctioned it, right? If Blvd can establish that Wayfair is the one that sanctioned these likes that amplified something that led to her harm, that from a being able to show up in court may stick, okay? But whether she wins is convincing the jury that the reason they did that conduct was a reaction to her, only to her SH complaint. That is going to be the hard part, because there's all this other stuff that happened besides supposedly this SH complaint. And they're allowed to say, maybe the SH complaint wasn't in good faith, right? Maybe it was something that was made to cover up something else. They're allowed to argue. So that's the danger for her. I would not, I would not necessarily, if this wasn't a celebrity case, or maybe if it was a celebrity case, I would not be interested. Like, there's so much mess here. I don't think you have a chance in front of the jury for what you're trying to do, because it looks like it had nothing to do with your SH. This is me. But yeah, and I know, it gets very, very technical, right? But if Wayfair,
right now, and the press is starting to come there, and she's now being labeled a toxic again by experts now for subpoenaing us, which is just backfired. I've seen so many experts come forward. Last quick thought. What is your thought on her subpoenaing myself and other creators? Google stuff. Would you have ever done that? Is this a good move?
It's a terrible move for many reasons. One, it opens the door for them to come after whoever's supposedly supporting her, right? Because we're tit for tat. You can't just be. It really opens the door for people to get into her business and her social media stuff. It's also just a bad tactical move, because this stuff isn't going to get in, and the judge is not going to be upset when he sees, like, what does this have to do with your case, right? This is stuff that happened after the case was filed. Your case was filed. You filed this case, and now there's fallout from the media standpoint. What does that have to do with your lawsuit? It's a mess. I think this is an absolute mess. This is a bad tactical decision. Unfortunately, I think this is a very bullying tactic to just try to silence you. And it's just got an ooh feeling to it. It's
crisis PR expert Molly McPherson is really great. She had a whole thing. She's like, someone on her side, Blake's side, is trying to destroy her. Do you sense that at all? Could there be someone in the inside who just wants her to fail at this? Could this just be lawyers billing her? Oh yeah, let's subpoena these creators. That's gonna cha-ching, cha-ching. Could that stuff happen?
No. I think this is something that was done with what we call CYA letters, cover your ass letters. Because I'm sure it came from the client, and they're like, we're telling you this is not going to work, and you're telling us to do this against your advice. And it's not unethical. It's just, it's not going to work from a tactical standpoint. I think that's what happened. I think they said, you want us to do what? We don't think we should do that. They're like, I'm paying you, you do what I say. I'm like, okay, here's my letter to you in case this blows up in our face to cover the attorney's ass. I think that's what happened because it's a waste of time.
That's an interesting take. I didn't even think of it. Man, Ron always blows my mind when he's on here. Always a pleasure. I know you got to go. Thank you for all your intelligence on this.
Course.
Thank you. Support him, please. Please enjoy the rest of you. Hit that subscribe if you guys haven't already. Hit the bells for alerts. Thumbs up, likes, comments, engaging. Appreciate all you guys who are watching. We got a lot more coming this week, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching.